Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Lots of, so many things happened the first day of free agency for the Dolphins. There's a lot to go through. Not a good day for Dolphins fans by any stretch of the imagination. I guess we'll do the departures first, and then we'll do the additions second, to be, I guess, a little bit more positive. We'll start this first news story. Linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel agrees to a deal with the Minnesota Vikings. It's a 3-year deal. This one, and the Dolphins lost three really good players. And he's obviously one of them. He's going to be tough to replace. Developed into a great player. I think that's the theme of these, that when you really start thinking about it, is unfortunate that we're not going to be able to reap the benefits of good drafting, because all of these players that we lost today, their primes, or most of their primes, will be played on different teams. The team that didn't draft them, obviously, which is unfortunate, especially as a fan of this team and this franchise. You would have liked to have kept one of those guys, and Van Ginkel is definitely one of them. I believe Van Ginkel was a 3rd-round pick, obviously out of Wisconsin, and I think we saw a lot last year, especially when he was on the outside, that he was becoming a top-tier edge player in the National Football League. Not just a good player, not just a good starter, but someone who can give you 10 sacks a year, and who's a two-way guy. He can set the edge in the run game, rush the passer at a very high level, and he was a playmaker. A very disruptive player. And, it sucks that we couldn't retain him. I think this one hurts a lot. Probably just as much as some of the other ones. But this next one we'll talk about. Dolphins lose Robert Hunt to free agency. He signs a $100 million deal, getting $20 million a year with the Carolina Panthers. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Obviously, the Dolphins couldn't afford that, especially with everything else that's happening in the offseason. This one hurts, like I said, most of his prime, especially Robert Hunt, who never really had up and downs. He had some downs, but again, it sucks that most of his prime will be played on another team. He was a great player, great 2nd-round pick. And it's going to suck replacing him. The Dolphins did re-sign Robert Jones earlier on, I believe that was on Sunday. That's really insignificant. Robert did okay coming in. It'll be interesting to see what the Dolphins do to replace some of that production. Whether, I would hope, again, the valuing the offensive line continues to be an issue with Chris Greer. And we'll see if he continues to invest in that in the offseason or not. Because clearly, and we'll talk about an offensive line addition here in a second, but guard, and we're talking about improving the team, getting better than it was last year. What the issues were, one of the biggest issues were the offensive line. So it's okay, we're subtracting here. What are we really going to do to make it better? Will we continue to invest in it? There's still the draft, obviously, and there's obviously a lot of free agency left. So we'll see what he ends up doing. It's not a full picture yet, but it's yet another offseason where the offensive line doesn't really seem to be as valued as much. Now, granted, the Dolphins couldn't do really anything about that. $100 million is a lot. For $20 million a year for a guard. The Panthers overpaid a little bit for him. Basically making him the highest paid guard in the National Football League. It is what it is, but we'll see what they do. Again, and you got to remember, it should be a priority for this team to do that. If you look at all the other teams with the good quarterbacks, they all invest in the offensive line way more than the Dolphins do. And not to mention the fact that Tua, unlike unlike the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL, all of them can move in the pocket at a very high level. And Tua is strictly a pocket passer. So you would think, if you were the general manager of this team, that would be a priority. And it hasn't really been that much of a priority in at least recent. I mean, he's been sticking to his guns with development, and now one of the players that he's developed has left. So it's a bit of a head scratcher, that one. This one hurts. Well, we'll start with this one first. This comes from Pro Football Numbers. Brandon Jones signs a 3-year deal with the Denver Broncos. This one, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I actually don't think he was really ever the same. And I read an article, I think it was somebody in Denver, talking about how he's such a playmaker. And yeah, Brandon's a very versatile player, but he did not look the same when he came back. He had some very bad games coming off that injury. Now, whether he'll ever recover from that or not, I don't know. I mean, he definitely got better as the year went on, but will he be the same that he was before? We didn't see that last year. So that that makes sense to me. And I know that, Javon Holland, tweeted about he wanted to get a deal done with Brandon, but that one I don't think hurts the team that much. And then the big one, the one that's the most unfortunate one, is Christian Wilkins leaving. Signed a $110 million deal. After the second year in the contract, he's getting paid $30 million a year. Christian Wilkins goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. At the end of the day, I'm happy it's not New England or someone in our division. So that was a good thing. But losing Christian is a huge loss to the team. It's another hole that we have to fill. How they're going to go about it, I don't know. I will say that in fairness to Chris Grier, with some of these decisions, to be short-sighted could hurt the team even more down the line with some of the younger players that do need to be paid, like Jalen Phillips and Jalen Waddle. So we'll see what happens in the future to really judge some of these decisions, because we're going to have full context of this offseason as well. But judging it today, because we don't know the future, obviously, this was a very big blow to the team. He's a great locker room player. I mean, he has been ever since he got here. I can't imagine how the team... I mean, a lot of those players haven't played it down without him. So, and as a fan, I mean, what else could you want from a player? It's really going to suck seeing him play in a different uniform. And it sucks they couldn't get a deal done earlier than this, like last year. And this was probably Chris Grier's biggest mistake in recent memory. Not getting this done earlier, being kind of not as aggressive as he should have been. And it's strange that, I don't know, maybe, even last year he said, that he wanted to see what he could do in the final year of his contract, and it came back to bite him. But, so huge loss to the team, and there is a huge void there. We all saw the team without Christian Wilkins last year. And I know everybody loves Zach Sealer, but Zach Sealer played next to Christian Wilkins. And if you don't think that helped, then you're out of your mind. Not that Zach Sealer's not bad, but he's not as good alone, And we saw, like I said, what the D-line looked like without Christian Wilkins. It was really bad. Now, granted, they didn't have great depth at defensive tackle. They didn't really help the defensive linemen up front that much. It was a lot of light boxes. I suspect some of that stuff is going to change. Hopefully we see more personnel groupings. And with some of the signings that we did have today, kind of shows you what direction they want to go in. But, losing Christian is a huge, huge blow for all of those reasons. You're not going to be able to replace his production as a two-way player in the NFL. You just can't. He's one of the best players at his position. He's one of the best Dolphins defensive linemen of all time. And it's just, you can't replace that. That's why he got $100 million. He's getting paid $30 million a year as an interior lineman. So, and you need those players to win and to be dominant in the NFL. Look at it's a tale as old as time. Everybody knows that. You win the game in the trenches. It all starts there. Every great team, probably 90%, 95% of them, had really good lines on both sides of the ball. So it is what it is. It sucks they couldn't retain him. They're going to have to, again, replace him in some way. Hopefully it's not in the first round of the draft, because that would suck. Taking defensive tackles in the first round rarely works if you look at it. And I hope we don't do that, especially at the position that we're in. Maybe in the second round, I'm okay with that, but not the first round. There's no one in the draft that really comes to mind that I'm like, oh, yeah. There's not like an Elijah Cansey, someone like that you can get in the 20s or the early teens, or the late teens where you can trade up. There's really no one like that in the draft. And the defensive tackle depth, and maybe I'm a little bit misinformed because I haven't looked into it all that much, but I do know like the top of the draft pretty well at that position. And none of them I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is whatever. And especially no one, I don't think, maybe you get someone like that where the Dolphins are. And there's certainly, unless they sign Eric Armstead tomorrow, there's no way that they're going to be able to replace that kind of a player. Who knows, maybe they can. We're going to talk about, obviously they've relieved some cap space. But I don't know, we'll see. There are some positive things we have to talk about today. But yeah, it was a very bad day to be a Dolphins fan. We don't really know what direction he's bringing. Like, we have to, again, right now we don't have the full picture. So we don't really know what else is out there. And I know people were freaking out about the Tyreek Hill tweet. Like, oh, Chris Greer. What the heck does Tyreek Hill know about what Chris Greer is doing? He knows nothing. So I was like, why would anybody even think that means anything? But, yeah, unfortunate. We lost a lot of good players, and when you lose good players, you become a worse football team. And unfortunately, did we improve today on the first day of free agency? No. I don't think we did, unfortunately. I thought we got worse, and we'll see what they do. They definitely can flip it. There's still an opportunity to do that and get better in other areas, get players that are a little bit more durable, and we'll see where they take it, because there's still hope for this team to have a really good offseason. And then, the first day, they made some good moves. Nothing, like, crazy. And we're going to talk about that now. But, yeah, another great day by any stretch of the imagination. It just is like, what is the plan? Like, what is... And again, it shows you that Chris Greer can pick players and develop them. Where he didn't develop them, but he can pick them. So there's that. At least he has talent in some way. Yeah, there was some Dolphins fan that tweeted, like, I can't remember the last time so many Dolphins have left that we drafted in free agency, and I agree with that. I think the last time that I can think of something like that was like Lamar Miller and like Olivier Vernon. Those are really the only ones I can think of. So, yeah, it's good that, it's a good sign in a weird, messed up way. But it's like, what's the plan to get better? And right now, we haven't gotten better, so we'll have to wait and see what Chris does. Get the full picture of the offseason. Just want to throw this in here as positive news after all the negative news. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Suitors are emerging for Chiefs cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. There was an update on March 10th. Add the Dolphins to the list of interested parties for L'Jarius Sneed. Miami is not in good cap shape and may lose both Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. Obviously, they did. But with the team cutting Xavier Howard, cornerback help will be sought. The Dolphins are believed to have looked into the prospect of acquiring Sneed. Now, if you look... This is one of the weirder objectives for the Dolphins to have because of the Cam Smith selection. But putting all that aside, if they were to acquire someone of that caliber, who's a top player at his position and one of the best players in the NFL, you do that deal. So if they do make this deal, then it completely changes the outlook of the offseason if they were able to get a player of that caliber. Now, will they or can they? I don't know. I mean, the Dolphins are, as of now, are over the cap due to the restructured deals of Zach Sealer. Jalen Ramsey restructured his deal, and then obviously Teron Armstead restructured his deal. We don't have the details on that yet. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. They're not going to get most of that cap space freed up until after June 1st, which is unfortunate. And Chris Grier literally said they don't really care about the cap situation that they have in March. He literally said that. So I don't know what his plan is with that. So maybe he can make a big move for a player like that. But it's been reported multiple times that the Dolphins have been leaked to Snead. Obviously, this is a franchise that has had dealings with the Chiefs in the past, so maybe they can get a deal done. So moving on from that, there's another rumor here that I think pretty much got squashed. Where does this report come from exactly? The Dolphins have, apparently it's been reported, this was reported yesterday, and I can't remember what outlet did, but this just reminded me of it. This L'Jarius Sneed talk. Let me see, where exactly did this come from? Can't remember exactly, but I mean, it probably isn't going to happen now. This comes from Yard Barker. So yeah, I mean, this is not the most credible of sources. I don't know where they're getting this from exactly, but it's been reported the Dolphins have mutual interest in Patrick Queen. So, and obviously Anthony Weaver has a relationship with him, but the Dolphins, it seems like, went in a different direction. I don't know if, I mean, Patrick Queen is an all-pro player. It would be nice to get someone like that. Maybe they're still in the market for a linebacker. They really don't have a nickel guy yet, and Patrick Queen can be that. So maybe the Dolphins still have, he's still a free agent, so there's obviously that Anthony Weaver connection. But if they were able to land a player like Snead or Queen, someone you can build around for the future, who is a cornerstone of a defense, then again, it would change the outlook of the offseason so far. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins add Anthony Walker, linebacker from Cleveland. He's agreed to a 1-year deal. Adam Schefter of ESPN reports. Walker spent the past 3 seasons with the Cleveland Browns, where he started 27 of his 28 appearances. He was limited only to 3 games of 2022 thanks to a torn quad, but he bounced back and got into 12 games in 2023. He finished this past season with 44 tackles, with Pro Football Focus grading him the 31st best linebacker out of 82 qualifying linebackers. He's a good rotational, very athletic. He's lost some of that over the years, but he's not a starting linebacker in the NFL. Or at least you're someone you'd be comfortable with that. Obviously, David Long and the next player we're going to talk about will probably be the starters, unless somehow they can work out a deal with Patrick Queen, which would have been ideal, because that would have given them a player that they can build around at that position for years to come, and we don't have to bring up the fact that the team that we're trying to beat in the division continues to abuse that part of the field, that being the middle of the field. So it makes sense why they're trying to get better, because this was probably the worst position group that the Dolphins had last year, was inside linebacker, because of injuries for the most part. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins signed linebacker Jordan Brooks to a 3-year deal worth up to $30 million. He's played a lot of games in his career. He's very durable. He's phenomenal against the run. People have brought up the fact that his PFF grade and pass coverage is not very good. If you look at just the cold hard stats of his pass and what he's been credited as to giving up, it's not good at all, which is weird because he's a very athletic player, which is a theme with the middle linebackers, but he's phenomenal against the run. He's a really good. He's a excuse me. He's a really good trench player. He's racked up a ton of tackles in his career. He can blitz pretty well, which is good. He kind of reminds me of a Demario Davis or a CJ Mosley. And to reference some players that have played in this type of a scheme that we're going to play in, and which is good. They needed a player like this. He's a big, physical linebacker that's really good against the run, which is going to help with the departure of Christian Wilkins. And they need to get stronger inside, especially against the run with his departure. So this is a really good signing for that. Does it fix the middle of the field problem? No. Statistically, if you look at the stats, it does not. But players like C.J. Mosley and Jordan Brooks, or Demario Davis, can carve out a very important part to their defense. They still don't have a third down guy. This is more of a first and second down player who excels at that, who's really good against the run. And he's durable. He did have one major injury in 2022. He had the ACL tear. But other than that, he's played. He played every game last year. And he's still really young. So he has upside. And it's not like he's slow. He's not like who's a great example? CJ Mosley, who's not very athletic and is limited because of that. He still has great athleticism, so maybe good coaching can kind of bring some stuff out of him where he can kind of become a 3-down player. But as of right now, and he has been in the league for a good amount of time, he is more of a first and second down player. But that's not a bad thing. I like his game. I like what he can bring to the team as a trench player. But they still need someone who can help them on third down. And as for, I believe this is actually the last signing of the day. Dolphins to sign This next news story comes from Pro Football Reference. Dolphins to sign Aaron Brewer from the Tennessee Titans. This is by far the best signing of the day. It's not even close. This is the best move of the first day. I forgot to talk about something. We'll talk about that. I don't know if it's the best move in free agency. I don't know. I think arguably this is probably the best move. If you're a Pro Football Focus, he was rated the 11th overall best center in the NFL, just outside of the top 10. I honestly think this is an upgrade over Connor Williams. Number one, Connor Williams has had many different issues, whether it's injuries or just being able to snap a football. The man's literally lost us a game by doing some of those things. Aaron Brewer has never missed a game in his career. He started all 17 games the last 2 years, and he's the 11th best center in the NFL. To me, that's an upgrade. Someone who's going to be more reliable at that position, whether it's snapping the football or just being on the field. He's an athletic player, which fits the system, and clearly is going to replace Connor Williams, because one thing that Connor was really good at is he was good in space, and that's what Brewer can bring to the team, which is good because he's an athletic center. I honestly think this is a really good signing and a really, really good upgrade from what we had before, and fills a huge need in the interior of the offensive line. And they got him for pretty good, a very good deal. 3 years, $21 million for the 11th best center in the NFL. That's a steal. And he's really young. I think he's only 26. Yeah, he's only 26 years old. So, and they get him for much cheaper. And maybe they can get Connor Williams to come back. And then if they can do that, then they flipped a bad situation into a really good one. Then not only did they save money, but in a lot of ways they got better at that position. So there's a lot of opportunities this gives the team. But as of right now, as a singular move, this was a phenomenal move in my opinion. And I know some people have brought up his pass protection stats aren't great. But his run stats, his run game run blocking is, I don't know why I couldn't think of the word, is really, really good. So I'm not concerned. Like, you can hide a center in pass protection pretty easy. And so if he can move people off the ball in the run game, that's all we really need from him. And if you are a big believer in pro football focus numbers, he's just outside of the top 10, which is fine enough with me. I think this is a really good signing, and I'm really happy about it. For the last signing of the day, I should have started with this. The Dolphins signed Jonnu Smith. This comes from Pro Football Rumors as well, for a very cheap deal. I forgot to mention one other signing, or two other signings that are smaller. I guess we'll talk about that after. But I really love this Jonnu Smith deal. Not only did he have, which is interesting if you think about it, he actually had a career year his last year in Atlanta. This dude is a really good run blocker, really good after the catch player. Really thought he was going to become one of the better tight ends in the NFL. Goes to New England. Doesn't do anything, which is weird. And then goes to Atlanta and has a pretty good career. His last year in Atlanta, played all 17 games. Had basically 600 yards, caught 50 passes, averaged 11 yards a catch, scored 3 touchdowns. He has phenomenal athletic ability. Like, he has scored 60-yard touchdowns in his career. Like, he sometimes looks like the fastest player on the field at tight end. That is something the Dolphins haven't had. And someone who can actually move in open space. They haven't had that in, it's probably over 7 years. Like, probably since Charles Clay. Whenever Charles left for the Buffalo Bills, this was the last time they had a tight end like that. He's also 6'3", which is great. Really, that could really help in the red zone. This is a player that could become something really great in an offense like this. He's a great run blocker, in my opinion. I think he's very good at it, even though he's a little undersized, 6'3", 250. I think he's pretty good at it. He played his entire NFL career. He's played in run-heavy offenses where you have to run block to play, and which is great for us. So that's not a problem for him. So he's a 3-down tight end that can score from anywhere on the field and could really be a presence in the middle of the field, which is something that we were sorely missing. Now, the outside, maybe people are like, oh, it's Jonnu Smith. But this is a player who could become something even more than he is now with a great play caller. And so this was also a great signing. My two favorite signings, it's not even close, Jonnu Smith and Brewer. I think Brewer's probably my favorite because I just love the numbers are great, and I just love the durability and the fact that we got the 11th best player graded. If you put a lot of stock into that, I don't, but if you do and you value that ranking, I don't know what other outlet I would look at to even rank the centers, but the fact that we got the 11th best center for $20 million on a 3-year deal, who's very durable, I think is probably the best move. But I love Jonnu Smith. Fills a huge need that this team needed bad. They had the worst tight end room in the NFL. And he's going to get a lot of targets. I'm sure he's going to throw him a lot of screens. And, he's taking handoffs. There's a lot of different things you can do with him. He's a really, really great athlete. He's actually got great hands, too. So this is a player that could potentially have a phenomenal season. We really only need, ideally 800 yards from him. And that's only 200 yards better than he had last year. So I think we can get that kind of production out of him easily. And this could be the third weapon we were talking about that the team desperately needs outside of Waddle and Hill and can really do damage on some of the short to intermediate stuff, which is another thing this team, despite popular belief, lacks. They don't get a lot of yards after catch in this offense, especially when we go up against better defenses. And this is a guy who's elite at that. That's where he makes most of his money, is yards after catch. And the Dolphins really didn't have any. A lot of them are, Waddle and Hill are vertical to like deep intermediate type of players, and Jonnu Smith is that run after the catch player that they really needed. So this is a great signing for the team and really improves the passing game. I am. Excuse me, guys. I got stuff coming out of my nose. But yeah, phenomenal signing. I love it. Love Jonnu Smith. And got him for a really good deal as well. The Dolphins also re-signed Jake Bailey and Nick Needham. That comes from Pro Football Rumors. I like to reference where I get these, because I could just say things. So you got to reference things, in my opinion, where you get the information from. But, yeah, I mean, to get him on that deal, just to add some things to Jonnu, is really, because I'm telling you guys, like, he has the ability to become one of the best tight ends in the NFL. It's a 2-year deal worth up to $10 million, which is phenomenal. That's a steal of a deal for a player who has that much upside, and I'm really looking forward to what he can do in this offense. Really, best tight end since Charles Clay, and could surpass him in a lot of ways. Very similar, and I'm excited to see what he does in the Miami Dolphins offense. So 2 very good signings so far in free agency. Jordan Brooks thing, I think, is a good signing, but it's like, okay, how do we fix the pass coverage in the middle of the field? And does he do that? No. And so that's why I think he's a little bit lower. But he, like I said, there is still something to be said for a player like a Demario Davis or C.J. Mosley. Those players can still exist in the NFL and they still have a lot of value. And I think he is that kind of a player. And maybe coaching can bring even more out of him. And because I think we do have a good defensive coach. So he has the athletic ability to become a 3-down guy. He just hasn't done it yet. But maybe he can. But he's a great trench player, which is good. I hope the Dolphins can still somehow get Patrick Queen. I doubt that they can, but we'll see. So before, what's crazy is Patrick Queen's 24, which is crazy that a player like that is just free as a free agent. Some players that I would keep my eye on and who could become Dolphins in the coming days. Connor Williams doesn't really seem to have a lot of buzz everywhere. I could see him coming back to the Dolphins, which would be pretty awesome. He had his best years as a Dolphin. He's still really young, so maybe they can get a deal done with Connor. Aaron Jones, they tried to trade for him last year. He is now a free agent. Maybe they can get a deal done with him. I think he's a phenomenal 2-way player that would really fit well in the offense. So that's a player to watch out for. L'Jarius Sneed, obviously there's a relationship there with the 2 franchises. It'll be interesting to see what a deal like that would look like. It's been reported that from multiple, I think ESPN is where I read it first, that he's going for a 2nd-round pick. At least that's the market for Sneed. That's an easy trade if you're the Dolphins. To get a player like that for a 2nd-round pick is kind of crazy. And if it's true, the Dolphins want to move Jalen Ramsey more so in the slot, and maybe that's what the lineup looks like, is Cam Smith and another corner, whoever that is, and then Jalen Ramsey in the slot. I'm not opposed to that, especially if they get a player like L'Jarius Sneed. So watch out for Sneed. Is there anybody else? Michael Thomas is a name that I would like to throw out there. I've mentioned many times the Dolphins have a huge need at that slot position, and Jonnu Smith certainly helps that. But to get a third player, with Michael Thomas's, and the best thing Michael Thomas did throughout his career is run routes and get open. He's a big receiver, great red zone threat. These are all things the Dolphins are lacking right now, and could dominate the middle of the field, especially with Hill and Waddle on the outside. And I think Mike McDaniel can work some magic and really, help a player like him get back to where he was before. Maybe not offensive player of the year, but someone who can be still very productive in his career. And he's a really good run blocker, very savvy player that could fit well with Tua, who is a Drew Brees-like of a player, really good with timing and routes, and gives you a lot of areas to throw, which is not something that Waddle and Hill present you because they're so short. But a bigger player like that gives a lot more, a lot more room for tighter window throws. So Michael Thomas would be a great addition to the team if they could get a deal done with him as well. So is there anybody else? Patrick Queen, I think that's not going to happen now. It would be cool if it did. I think that would be a phenomenal pickup if Miami was able to get something like that done. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I want to mention. I really was going to mention AJ Epinesa, but he went back to Buffalo. But that would have been a really good signing for the Dolphins. I don't think there's anyone else really that I can think of. Obviously, Gabe Davis went to Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley's out there, just to throw a name. I don't think it'd be pretty awesome if he became a Dolphin, but obviously the Tua connection is interesting. But I don't think that's going to happen, so I wouldn't really put that on the list. But yeah, I think Aaron Jones, Snead, who else did we mention? Connor Williams. Those are some of the names that I would look for that could be big moves for the Dolphins and would be interesting. And those would be those would really help out the team, obviously. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys enjoyed. I did mention, I think I didn't forget to mention, Stead, Armstead, Ramsey, Sealer, all restructured. So maybe we'll see what happens tomorrow, and hopefully we can, next time we do a video, that we can talk about some more positive things than we did today. But two really good signings. I love Brewer, and I love Jonnu Smith a lot. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next one.